Hello you guys, it's Katie and welcome back to another video on my vlog channel. So today I finally have another health update video for you guys. I promised I would do this in the last health video that I made, which was almost 3 months ago at this point, which is crazy to think about. I've been trying to wait for more test results to come in and just more answers so that I could tell you everything at once, but now we're kind of at a stopping point, which you guys are going to see. I'm going to give you the whole timeline of everything that has been happening. So yeah, I'm just here to share what's been going on, some of my symptoms, all of the diagnoses, all of that. So just a little disclaimer before we actually start this video. I am in no way, shape, or form a doctor. I only know the things I'm talking about through what I have researched and what I have learned from my own doctors. So please do not take anything I say as 100% fact. I am going to be linking many resources below. I've watched a lot of videos myself recently that are similar to the one I'm making now, as well as I've read a lot of articles and learned a lot of things. So things that I have found helpful I'm going to leave in the description box below for you guys in case you do want to learn more, but I'm going to do my best to educate you as far as what I know, as well as tell you everything that's going on with me. So just want to put that little disclaimer out there before we get started, because I could say something that is incorrect and not know it. So I do just want to make sure you know that. Alright you guys, so it's the next day and I'm sitting here about to edit this video you're watching. That's why I look like this. But I did just want to give you another little disclaimer before the video actually gets started, that I'm not making this video at all to make people feel bad for me or anything like that. I do just want to keep you guys updated on what is going on, as well as just hopefully educate you or help you feel less alone if you are going through something similar or the same exact thing. So with that, we're going to actually get started on the video, but I did just want to make sure you guys realize that this is not to make anybody feel bad for me or anything like that. Like, I promise I am fine and I'm going to be perfectly fine, especially as I get things straightened out in the future. But with that, we are going to actually get started now. So really quick, I'm going to give you guys a breakdown of everything that I mentioned in the last video, just in case you don't want to watch that, because I know it was like almost an hour-long video. For my last health update, I did go in very much detail in that video, so if you are interested in watching it, I will leave it linked below. But otherwise, I am just going to give you a little breakdown really quickly, because otherwise the rest of this video isn't going to make sense. And if you watch that video, you might have forgotten stuff anyway, because it has been 3 months. So you guys, back in early May of 2022, which I'm now filming this on August 5th of 2022, I ended up fainting, so obviously I went to the doctor right afterwards. So I had a lot of things tested, everything from pregnancy to my thyroid, and the only thing that came back immediately as being wrong, I guess you would say, is my blood pressure. After that first appointment, I was diagnosed with orthostatic hypertension. I talked about all of that in the last video, but it is low blood pressure, specifically from standing up, sitting up, all of that, dizziness, all of those symptoms. But in my mind, it never really made sense that that would have been why I fainted, because I was actually standing in my bathroom doing my makeup, and then I started to feel really nauseous and like get the sweats and stuff. So that's when I was walking to get food, because it was really early in the morning. I thought maybe I just needed something to eat, and then I fainted. So it never really made sense that like standing up or anything would have been the cause. I thought maybe that I turned too quickly or something. I don't know, but there's a lot of different causes still up in the air for why I fainted. So after my first appointment, I did have to wait about a week and a half. We actually had a vacation planned already. So once we got back from that, I went to my follow-up appointment, and that is when my blood work results came back in. So the only thing that was off on that blood work result was my THS, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone. So I'm gonna actually give you guys exactly the screenshot. I obviously can't show you the full thing because it has my full name and all of that stuff and doctor's name and all of that, but I will show you like what the lab work actually says. So my T4, which is the main hormone produced by the thyroid gland, was within the normal range but still almost high, and then the TSH was very high. So you can see at the bottom it says normal range for 1 to 19-year-olds, which I am 19, is 0.5 to 4.3. My level was 9.41, so that was quite high. And what I've learned recently as well through some research is 10 on that level is like how high you can go without it being like super dangerous. So it is a little scary that my level was that high, but at that appointment I got put on levothyroxine, or levothyroxine, I don't know, I've been saying it both ways. But anyway, it is a medication used to treat an underactive thyroid gland. Levothyroxine is taken to replace the missing thyroid hormone thyroxine. So I'm reading some stuff off to you guys just so I don't say things wrong as far as like TSH and levothyroxine and all of that. I want to give you like proper definitions, so I'm doing that as well. So that's when I got put on that, and basically the way that works, if you're unfamiliar, is most of the time a doctor will put you on the lowest dosage of levothyroxine or whatever medication. There's different versions that do basically the same thing, but levothyroxine is what I was put on, and they will put you on the lowest dosage to start, and then you will go every 4 to 6 weeks to get new blood work done, and they will update whether you need the next dosage of levothyroxine or your levels are good. So that is what I ended up doing. I waited, I think, like 4 weeks or something, and had my next labs done, and this was the results from that one. So this time my T4 was high, which was at 1.5, and the TSH was still high, a little bit lower but still high at 6.93. Again, it's supposed to be under that 4.3 range. So this is when I went to the doctor, and I've been seeing 2 different doctors, by the way, you guys. There's a few different doctors at the same practice. I saw one of them the first 2 times because he was the only one I could get into after I fainted, and then I have now been going back to my regular doctor since I've actually been able to schedule like a month in advance instead of like a week. So anyway, this time I went to her, and she felt my thyroid, which is right here, by the way, if you didn't know, said it felt normal, which a symptom of hypothyroidism, which I'm going to get into the symptoms I've been having and everything. But a symptom is having your neck being swollen, specifically where your thyroid is. Mine isn't, at least as far as when she felt it a couple weeks ago when I was at the office. She said it wasn't swollen, but the fact that my levels were so wonky at this rate was still kind of weird. So she said we're gonna give it another month and see what happens, see if things level out, because your body does need a certain amount of time to be on the medication for it to actually level out with all of the T4 and TSH. So she said we're gonna give it another month and just see. So that's what we did, and for all of my next levels they came back normal, other than one, which we're going to talk about. So, but as far as my T4, this level was back in the normal range, actually at 1.3 again, which is where I started. The T3, which is the first time I had T3 tested, this was in the normal range for 3.6. And then the TSH was also in a normal range as well with 4.04. So with all of that being said, that shows that my levothyroxine is working and I don't need to up the dosage or lower the dosage or anything like that, which I'm only on like the first level of the dosage, so there would be no lowering it, it would just be getting off the medication. But anyways, all of those levels came back normal, but she did have one other level tested, which when I got this result back, I had no idea she was doing this. So I was confused, to say the least, but I'm gonna get into the explanation, I promise. But I just want to tell you like the timeline of how I figured everything out, so it hopefully makes sense. But anyway, so she actually tested my thyroid antibodies, and this is a level that came back very abnormal. So the top one, which is, I think it's thyroglobin is how you say that. Anyway, that antibody is pretty much normal. It says standard range is less than or equal to 1, and mine came back as 1, so in the normal range. And the next one is what was the problem, and I'm not gonna even try to say it because I'm not gonna do a good job. But you can see on the bottom that it says standard range is less than 9, and mine was 271. So when I saw that, I flipped out a little, and I was like, what the heck? Like, that seems really bad. And I went back to all the rest of my results trying to look and see what my levels were before. I realized I wasn't tested for that before, so then I started doing Googling, which probably was not the best idea. But I did, in fact, start Googling, and basically the only thing that comes up, I mean, there are other causes for your antibodies to be this high, I assume, but the main one, and what I most likely have, is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, also known as Hashimoto's disease. It is an autoimmune disease. Let me just look up the definition so I can give you exactly what it is. So the definition is Hashimoto's disease is an autoimmune disorder affecting the thyroid gland. The thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland located at the base of the neck, just below the Adam's apple. The thyroid produces hormones that help regulate many functions in the body. An autoimmune disease is an illness caused by immune system attacking healthy tissue. In Hashimoto's disease, immune system cells lead to the death of thyroid's hormone-producing cells. The disease usually results in a decline in hormone production, which is hypothyroidism. So I was diagnosed with that previously. So I don't have like an actual diagnosis for this. I haven't seen the doctor since the last time I was telling you and everything. So basically we have an app that like is used by our healthcare providers and everything. And my mom always helps me because I'm new to taking care of myself as an adult. I'm only 19, so she always helps me. But anyway, we messaged my doctor about that thyroid level. We waited a few days, didn't hear anything. So I was like, well, now where do we go from here? So my mom and I were both curious, so we messaged her, and I'm gonna read to you exactly what she said. Your thyroid function is normal on this lab, which we discussed. That's the TSH, the T4, and the T3. One of your thyroid antibodies is elevated, though, indicating what is called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which at this point I had already known because I did way too much Googling. This is the most common cause of hypothyroidism. Since your thyroid function is normal on this lab, you do not need treatment at this time, but your levels should be periodically monitored. It will be important in the future if and when you plan on pregnancy. I will order to recheck your thyroid lab in 3 months, and we will mail this to you. So that's exactly what she said. So I don't have any appointments or anything, and in 3 months I just go get more blood work. So in my mind, it's a diagnosis but not a diagnosis, which obviously like doesn't make much sense, but I hope you're understanding, because she just said it indicates Hashimoto's thyroiditis, but I haven't actually seen her in office for her to give me a diagnosis or tell me any additional information. So everything else that I'm about to tell you in this video is things that I have learned on my own through my own research at this point. So that's kind of all for like the timeline of everything that has been happening. Other than I did actually get an echocardiogram as well, which everything came back completely normal from. So the cause of my fainting, it's not my heart, it is either my thyroid or my blood pressure, most likely. But at this rate, me personally, I'm leaning towards my thyroid because the dizziness and all of that is also a symptom of the thyroid. So really quick before we get into all the rest of this, I'm gonna read you the symptoms that I wrote down that I have. I went through a whole article of a ton of symptoms, so I can leave that linked below for you guys. Obviously, if you have Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, not everybody is going to have all the symptoms, and not everybody is going to have all of the same symptoms. So I'm just saying that to tell you that a lot of the symptoms I have, you may not have, even if you're watching this and you've been diagnosed, or if you think you have hypothyroid or Hashimoto's. Either way, everybody's going to be different. So first thing that I should probably tell you, actually, which isn't really a symptom, but something to note, is it is in my family. At least hypothyroidism is. I'm not sure on Hashimoto's. Unfortunately, it is a newer thing. The antibody test, from a lot of the research I've done, I've learned that a lot of people don't actually end up getting their thyroid antibodies tested until much later on in life, if at all. So probably the case in my family, I'm assuming, if I do have Hashimoto's especially, is that their hypothyroidism was undiagnosed Hashimoto's, if that makes sense. So anyway, that is like the first thing to note, is that it is in my family history. My mom's mom had it. My mom and my sister are both being tested hopefully soon for their thyroids in general to see if they have it, because both of them do have some symptoms. Not as many as I have, I would say, but both of them do have some symptoms. And my dad has been tested and came back normal for his thyroid, which it is a lot more common in women than men, so that makes sense. But anyways, now on to the actual symptoms. So I'm just going to go through these kind of quickly, unless I have something to add. So appetite changes, weight changes, anxiety, depression, heavy periods, headaches, fatigue, droopy eyelid, which I want to get back to this. I do want to talk about that because that's one of the most interesting ones I found on my own research. But anyway, insomnia, cold intolerance, brain fog, dry skin, and scalp. I also wrote mild psoriasis, which I can get back to as well. Hoarse voice, which you can kind of hear right now. Vertigo, fainting, dizziness, puffy eyes, dark circles under my eyes, pale skin, loss of drive, kidney stones, low blood pressure, which is also the orthostatic hypertension, wrist and other joint pain, nausea, bloating, wanting to be in solitude, mood swings, personality changes, hair loss, and sore throat is what I wrote down from this one article. And that's probably not even everything, to be honest with you. It's so hard to remember everything. Like, oh my goodness. So let's go down the line and just talk about a few of them that I feel like are really notable, and I can tell you some things I've experienced. So appetite changes, I would say it's hard to pinpoint like timelines, but maybe around the time quarantine hit, so like 2020, I actually started working out, so that was different for me, but I was still eating about the same amount as normal. And then about a year after that, so 2021 or so about a year ago now, I would say, I actually stopped working out and still haven't worked out consistently since then. Even though it was actually something that I really enjoyed, I just didn't have the energy. And I started to gain weight, but I assumed that was because I was back to eating as much as I was before, but without the working out. So I did gain weight. And then anxiety and depression run in my family, but they've also just worsened throughout the years. So there's that. Heavy periods, you guys might also know if you watch this channel at all. I was originally on Nexplanon, which I had removed in April of this year, and I switched to NuvaRing, and now that I've had my periods consistently since then, they are really heavy periods. Headaches, which I currently have one right now. Fatigue, that is just being tired, not even just tired, exhausted. I am even on the levothyroxine, you guys, which when the doctor first prescribed me levothyroxine, he literally said that this should be a fix for everything and it should make all of my symptoms so much better, and that is just not what I've experienced at all. Like, I honestly feel like my symptoms are worse, which I'm gonna get into a little later, but I'm to the point where every day I need a nap. Doesn't matter how much I slept at night, I need a nap every day by like 2, 3 o'clock. The droopy eyelid is one of the most interesting ones to me. So, I don't know if you guys can tell. I'm looking straight at the camera right now. I don't know if you can tell. It's noticeable to me very much because I look at my face every day. But this eye is a lot more closed and like more squinted than this eye. And my face has always been like that, so I just assumed it was genetic. Someone in my family has it. Or it's just how I was born. I don't know. That's what I just assumed. I had no idea that it was actually a medical condition. There's actually a name for it. I'm going to link an article on it specifically because the one article I read on it was really interesting. But somehow it is related to your thyroid, and a lot of people, not a lot actually, I don't know how many, but people with hypothyroidism can have a droopy eyelid, or both eyelids, but specifically me is my right eye. So very random, I feel like, for a symptom, but apparently it is one. Insomnia. I feel like I slept pretty well until I started levothyroxine, and now I just don't. Okay, I take that back. I don't think I've ever slept like really well my whole life, but I think insomnia has gotten worse since I started levothyroxine, which I'm not blaming it on levothyroxine, by the way. I do think that it has helped. Obviously it's helped. I mean, my levels are back in the normal range for TSH, T4, T3, but I do think that I'm just a lot more aware of the symptoms now, so I would just like push things away and, you know, try to ignore different things that were symptoms. And now that I actually have diagnosis and all of that, I do feel like I notice things more. So I think it's more so that than the symptoms actually being worse now that I've started the medication, if that makes sense. So cold intolerance, I have had that my whole entire life. You guys can see I'm in a giant sweatshirt right now, and my legs are under the covers. That's why I'm sitting on my bed. Otherwise I would have pants on. My feet are always freezing, but I am the type of person that refuses to wear socks. I'm just used to my feet being freezing at this point. My hands are even cold right now, but specifically my feet are always freezing, and I just hate wearing socks. I will sometimes if I'm like sick or something and I have a fever and my feet are really cold, then I will wear socks, but otherwise I just refuse because I feel like they're feet prisons. But that's me being from Florida and growing up never wearing socks or shoes. But anyway, cold intolerance, brain fog, which this is something that I've always noticed, just not being able to remember things properly. Like, one example that I feel like a lot of people use is walking into a room and forgetting why you came into that room. Like, that's always been a big one for me for as long as I can remember. And then dry skin and scalp / mild psoriasis. My mom has psoriasis. I went to the dermatologist that she went to, and I got prescribed the same cream for my hands. So like mild psoriasis is what I say, because it's not like full blown like my mom's is, but it may get that way as I age. And then dry skin and scalp in general is a big symptom that a lot of people with hypothyroidism have. Hoarse voice, you can kind of hear it right now because I've been talking in this video for a long time, as well as I filmed a couple other videos today. So that, and then we obviously have vertigo, fainting, and dizziness. I've only fainted once so far. I've been very careful since that one time because that was very scary and I do not want to do that again. But dizziness and vertigo I have dealt with for a long time. Even when I was in like middle school, I would say, or even late elementary school, I would go on roller coasters with friends. I've grown up in the Tampa, Florida area, so I've almost my whole life had Busch Gardens passes, and I am to the point now at 19 years old where I cannot ride roller coasters because of the vertigo and the dizziness. So I tried like last month. I was okay, but just quite dizzy. So, you know, I decided that roller coasters aren't for me anymore, even though I love them. Oh my god. Love roller coasters, but just can't do it anymore. Even like I was saying in elementary school and stuff, I would ride the roller coasters. I wouldn't have problems with dizziness or vertigo until after riding them a couple times, which at that stage I thought, okay, that's probably normal because you probably shouldn't ride the same roller coaster that goes upside down like 8 times, 7 times in a row, you know? So that was kind of one of those things that I just blamed it on riding the ride too many times. So there was that, but then there's also been many times going to the beach where the waves are really heavy, and if I stay in the water for more than like 2 hours, probably even more than an hour at this point, I don't know, but if I stay in the water for too long while I'm at the beach and the waves are like hitting me, so you know your body's kind of swaying the whole time you're in the water because the waves are hitting you, I will come home and try to go to bed that night, close my eyes, and I literally feel like I'm swaying when I'm not moving, but I feel like I'm swaying. I've dealt with that for a long time. And then same thing with the roller coasters. If I ride them at night, close my eyes, and just feel like I'm moving still. So I've definitely had that for a long time. Puffy eyes, I never really noticed that much until after the diagnosis, but my mom told me, she's like, oh yeah, I've noticed that your eyes are puffy. Like, okay, so I guess I've had that one for a long time. I don't know how long. Dark circles, I've always had. I currently have makeup on, not that much makeup because I've been wearing it all day and it has flaked off my face, as well as I took a nap and didn't bother to fix it. So I don't know how well you can see it or not, but if you ever see pictures or videos of me without makeup, on this channel specifically is where I share most of the videos and stuff of me not wearing makeup. Otherwise, when you see me, I am wearing makeup. But anyway, in some of the vlogs and stuff on this channel, I'm not wearing makeup, and you can tell. I just have like my whole eyes. Sometimes I look at myself in the mirror, even without being like sleep deprived. If I've had like a couple good nights of sleep, I can still look at myself in the mirror and feel like I look sick because I have such dark circles. But I've read before that that's genetic. So I thought, okay, not much I can do about it. Even if I am sleeping well, it's genetic. But apparently it's also hypothyroidism. Pale skin. So in general, I stay in my house a lot because I crochet and do YouTube and stuff. So I don't get out very much. But I used to be a lot more tan of a person in general, and I'm just not anymore. So yeah, pale skin, loss of drive. That's been a big thing for me. I don't want to cry right now. I really don't. Told myself I wasn't gonna cry in this video, and here I am. Yeah, loss of drive is just a hard thing for me. Time for a tissue. But seriously, I love what I do. I love crocheting and I love making videos for you guys. I never used to procrastinate at all with, like, don't get me wrong, I am a bad procrastinator, especially when it came to school and stuff. If it's something I don't like, I will procrastinate, and I can tell you that. But every aspect of what I do, as far as crocheting, as far as making videos, editing, filming, all of it, I don't mind. Editing is probably my least favorite part, but I still don't mind it, and I still find it pretty fun to be able to, you know, see the video come together and, you know, watch it through once it's completed. All of that. Like, I'm a very creative mindset person, so like even the process of editing the videos and having a final product at the end is kind of like you know, same idea as like an art piece or a crochet piece, you know, you have something done at the end. So, you know, there's no part of it that I dislike, I would say, especially hate. But recently I've come to the point where I procrastinate everything. This video being one of them. I probably could have filmed this a while ago and then done another update, but instead here I am giving you probably like a 2-hour long video at this rate, because here I am still talking and I've been filming for like an hour. But anyway, just in general, whenever I'm procrastinating a video or crocheting something or an order or whatever it is, editing the video, it's just a loss of drive at this point, because I still love it. It's just like, I'm not gonna say become a burden, that's not the right word. I hope you guys like understand what I'm getting at. We're just gonna move on, because I really am gonna cry more if I keep talking about it. So, kidney stones. My family suffers from chronic kidney stones, you guys. We have the worst kidneys, I can almost guarantee it. So I've had my share of them. My sister's going through them right now. My mom and my dad have had them. So, you know, I read that that was a symptom of hypothyroidism, so I just had to write that down, because obviously I have that. Orthostatic hypertension, the low blood pressure, not going to go too much into that because we have already discussed that in the previous video and today. The wrist and joint pain. The wrist pain specifically is something that's been bothering me recently in my right hand, right here. And I crochet for a living and make YouTube videos, so it is something that's obviously concerning. So it's not even like you would expect my wrist to start hurting after a full day of crocheting, or maybe the day before I crocheted the whole day, whatever. It's not even like that, it's just random. So that's why I wrote it as a symptom. If I only had wrist pain after crocheting for a long time, then I would contribute it to crocheting. But since I haven't crocheted at all today, I barely crocheted yesterday, and currently my wrist hurts. All I did today was editing, which I don't move my wrist that much because my hand is on the mouse. So, I don't know. Now I'm moving my wrist more, so that's probably making it even worse. But, and then other joint pain in general, like sometimes my ankle, which is weird. But yeah, and then my knees and stuff, which this is something that I need to look up. But my whole life, all of my joints pop insanely loud. Just like skip like 10 seconds if popping is gonna bother you. Okay, like my whole life I can pop everything. Every time I bend down, my knees pop so loud and people look at me. Every time I walk, my toes pop, or my ankles, both. Okay, very weird, but I've been that way my whole life, so I wonder if like the popping is contributed to that, possibly. I don't know, that's something I haven't looked up, but I should. Anyway, nausea. Nausea is something that I haven't experienced until being on levothyroxine, but I have also read that that is a symptom of levothyroxine. So I'm not exactly sure on that, but I have been experiencing a lot more nausea than normal, which also makes me concerned because, yeah, like every time I feel nauseous I get concerned that I'm gonna faint again, because that was like one of the only things I felt before I fainted was nausea, and then I fainted. So, you know, it does make me a little concerned. And specifically when I'm driving, which is even more great. Anyway, bloating. I am one of those people that if I eat a full meal, an hour or so later I can look like I'm pregnant, not be able to wear the same pant size because of the bloating. Wanting to be in solitude, mood swings, and personality changes. I'm gonna kind of group all together just to hopefully get this video going faster, because I've been talking for way too long, you guys. I'm so sorry. Probably nobody's watching this at this point because I've been talking for so long. But yeah, I'm just not the same person that I used to be. Again, we're gonna fight back tears on this one. But yeah, I'm just not the same person that I used to be, and it's really sad. Probably anybody that has met me recently probably thinks that I'm a bitch, to say the least. But because I'm just so moody 24/7, and I don't know what it is, the tiniest things annoy me. Like, I have road rage now. Like, seriously, I used to not. Okay, I'm not gonna say I never had problems with road rage. Sometimes there are things that make me mad, like if somebody cuts me off. Okay, I probably used to would have gotten mad, but more recently I just insanely, which I probably should have even wrote rage, because that was one of the things the article listed too, but in general I have to force myself to be social now, which is not the case, did not used to be that way. Even with my family, oh my god, y'all, I did not expect to be like this. I'm just gonna move on instead of continuing to talk about it, because jeez Louise. Hair loss, I haven't experienced too much, but a little bit. Like, if my hair wasn't covered right here, you could see that there's a little patch back here. My hairline's just like receding a little bit is what I would say. And then sore throat. Some days I wake up with a really sore throat and I'm just like, do I have strep throat? Which is something that I did have as a child a couple of times, but I haven't had in years. And some days I wake up randomly and feel like I have strep throat. None of the other symptoms but a really sore throat. And I never knew what to think of that, but that did start happening to me, I'd say maybe like a year or two ago. And I would just drink a lot of water, thought maybe I didn't drink enough water the day before, something like that. And I don't know, I always just came up with excuses for everything. So now to have at least a diagnosis, if not diagnoses, because possible Hashimoto's, it does feel better, but it's also a lot to take in, to know that there is so much that I do have going on, but also at least it has a name and it is something, is what I can say, I guess. Couple other things I did want to mention to you guys that I thought were interesting whenever I was looking into it, which I'm gonna leave like so many links below, you guys. So many other videos that I've watched of people talking about their experiences being diagnosed with Hashimoto's or hypothyroid or both. It's people talking about their diets with Hashimoto's, which I've learned is probably going to be the main thing that helps me, because there is no treatment for Hashimoto's. All they do is treat the hypothyroidism part, which is with the levothyroxine. So I'm already doing that piece of it. So all they would basically do is continue to monitor my TSH, T4, T3, and make sure that all of those levels are good. But otherwise, I will have the Hashimoto's for the rest of my life and struggle with it most likely. So there are many diets that I've heard work good for some people, and it honestly just depends on the person from what I've learned. So I can also keep you guys updated on that if you want to hear how that's going. I'm not planning on making any huge dietary changes as of right now, just because honestly living with my family, it's gonna be hard. I think in a couple years, once I'm moved out, it'll be easier for me to go completely gluten-free or completely dairy-free or whatever it is that I find that I need. But I'm not gonna make my mom buy like completely new groceries and like separate things for me. Even though she's offered, I'm not gonna make her. And honestly, I just don't want to give up a lot of the stuff. Like dairy and gluten-free and sugar-free is the main things I've heard that most people with Hashimoto's or autoimmune diseases in general find works best for them. But as of right now, first off, I need to do a lot more research, and second off, I'm just to the point where I'm not willing to give up most of that stuff. So I don't know. I'm definitely gonna work on setting a better routine for myself though, and trying to get better sleep. Me sitting here at 1:02 a.m. telling you that I'm trying to get better sleep. But no, in the future I'm gonna be working on all of this stuff that will hopefully help managing my stress levels, all of that kind of stuff. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, you guys, that I feel like is kind of important, and I've heard a lot of people that have Hashimoto's or Hashimoto's doctors that make YouTube videos, like, I've heard this a lot, and pinpointing what changed within like a year before your diagnosis or like a year before you started showing major symptoms of Hashimoto's or hypothyroid is important to kind of seeing maybe what could have either caused it or made things worse, that kind of thing. So a couple of things that I think I can attribute is stress levels. First off, I'm not gonna deny that, okay? I'm not. Stress levels, I put a lot on myself, I do. So stress levels is probably the number one thing, to be honest with you. I do also think that my birth control, listen, I have not talked to any doctors about this. I've only done a little bit of research on this. Don't quote me on this, but I do think this could be a factor, is my birth control. So I mentioned this a little bit in this video already, but brief rundown, if you guys want to watch the video on it, you can watch it. I did a video switching birth controls. I like to just make videos of things like this to hopefully help other people if they're going through it. So anyway, I switched from Nexplanon to NuvaRing in like March or April of this year. I think it was April, but I can't exactly remember. But anyway, I did switch from Nexplanon, which when I was taking Nexplanon, I had no period with it, and I kind of had some period symptoms like mood swings, sometimes cramps and stuff, but it would never be on like a actual cycle, and I never had bleeding. So I kind of just wanted a birth control that was going to actually give me a cycle, since I was getting symptoms anyway. So that's why I made the decision to switch to NuvaRing instead of Nexplanon. But now I've learned that NuvaRing has estrogen. Nexplanon is estrogen free. I do think estrogen is a big hormone that causes thyroid problems from what I've learned. That's why it's so common in women and everything, because estrogen. So, and also a lot of women will have hypothyroid or be hypothyroid, or either hyper, whichever, throughout pregnancy or postpartum, and then it'll just go away. Anyway, that's all to say that estrogen and hormone levels in general affect your thyroid a lot. So I do think that switching from a birth control that was estrogen free to a birth control that has estrogen may have affected me, and the fact that it was roughly a month before my fainting episode, and then my thyroid being at least part of the cause, makes me believe that this is a possible explanation. Which, by the way, I don't want this to sound like I don't have hypothyroidism and I think it's just because of my birth control. That's definitely not the case. I'm quite sure my thyroid is something that I'm going to struggle with throughout my whole life, even if I'm not on birth control. So I don't think that that's the case. I just think that it may have raised my levels higher than they were before, and that's why symptoms started to worsen, and why I fainted and then got the diagnosis and all of that kind of stuff. So that is my working theory, but I don't really know. And also, one other thing that I wanted to mention, that I think this is my theory for why I fainted, but again, it could be a combination of all of the diagnoses I have. It could be something else. Honestly, I don't know. But my theory, as you guys saw earlier, the blood work I got like 2 or 3 days after my fainting episode came back as 9.41, I believe is what it said. And I mentioned that that 10 level, once you get past that, you have a lot more risk of lots of other severe things. So I read up on it, and you can actually have your TSH level rise when you don't get enough sleep. Which, the morning that I fainted, the night before, I slept for like 4 hours. And then I had to get up really early, so it was like 7 a.m. I was standing in my bathroom trying to put on makeup, and then that's when everything happened. So I feel as if being sleep deprived and the birth control, possibly a combination of that, probably caused my TSH and other levels to rise so high, maybe even above that 10 that morning when I fainted, and that's why it happened. That's my theory, but all of that I have not run past any doctors or anything like that, so I don't know for sure. That's all just from my research. And by the way, you guys, whenever I do research, I do try to make sure that it's, you know, websites that end in .org, or at least, you know, have some sort of citation or something like that to back up whatever they're talking about. And then all the YouTube videos I've been watching are either from doctors or people that are just talking about their own experience, like me. So, oh my goodness, y'all, I need to end this video now. I am starting to have pain because I've been sitting here for too long. So thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you have made it all the way to the end. I know this video is going to be a long one, just with the amount I've been talking. I think it's been an hour, maybe a little more. With editing, it'll probably be less, but still, it's been a long video, I'm sure. So I apologize that it's been so long. If you guys have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. If there's enough questions, I can make a whole nother video. If only a couple people have questions, then I can just answer them in a reply. But I do plan on keeping you guys updated as far as if I have any other diagnoses, that's the way to say that word. Or if, you know, my thyroid levels change and I end up being on more levothyroxine, or they take me off of it, or Hashimoto's is on the table and I'm changing my diet, or Hashimoto's is off the table. Whatever it is, I plan on keeping you guys updated. It may be a couple months, it may be a year from now, it may be tomorrow. Not really, it's not gonna be tomorrow. But it may be really soon when I have the next update for you guys, or it may be a while. But either way, it'll be on this channel, so just subscribe is all I can say. But otherwise, I don't upload to this channel much because, like I said earlier, I don't have much time for the fun stuff. I wish I had time for the vlogs and stuff, but also I just don't do much that's interesting anymore because I don't have the energy. So I basically sit at home and edit or crochet or whatever. But anyways, y'all, again, thank you for watching. Tons of resources, other videos I've found helpful, all of that is going to be linked below. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video, which I have no idea when it's going to be on this channel, but you can always see me Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday on the main channel. So yeah, goodbye y'all.